Hello everyone, back to tuning into today's video. We're doing the United States seasonal model roundup. In today's video we're going to have a look at the seasonal models for the winter of 2012-2013 one last time, and at the end of this video I'm going to come to a forecast based on these models of what I think is likely to happen in the United States in terms of temperature and precipitation this winter. Now before we go on with the video I want to explain about the advertising. There'll usually be a video ad overlaying my weather videos at GavsWeatherVids.com. Please play those videos. You'll be supporting GavsWeatherVids.com if you do that. I also want to mention about my link up with Amazon. I am now affiliated to Amazon, so click on the Gav Shop button at the bottom of this page. You'll go through to my shop, to Gav Shop, have a browse through some of the items that I've put up into Gav Shop. You're not restricted to buy just those items, so you can buy absolutely anything you want for Christmas from Amazon. So click on any of the Amazon banners, you'll go through to Amazon. And there you will, as I say, be able to buy absolutely anything you want, and at the same time you'll be supporting GavsWeatherVids.com also. So very exciting developments have taken place on my website for Christmas. So let's get on with the video, and we're going to start off with the UK Met Office seasonal model. This is the final update from the UK Met Office seasonal model for December, January, February. The first thing we're looking at is mean sea level pressure. So this is surface pressure across the whole of the world actually, but we're specifically focusing on the United States. And model is going for below average pressure here, low pressure out to the west of the nation. For many central eastern parts of the nation, pressure is actually near normal, maybe slightly above average up here around the Canadian border, but some high pressure up there. But really much of the nation away from the west signal to have pressure, sea level pressure, to be around the seasonal average. For temperatures, the temperature anomaly for December, January, February, we're actually forecasting above colder than average winter, I should say, here in the upper northeastern part of the nation. Signal there is for a cooler to colder than average winter, maybe as much as 1 Celsius colder than average. But for many central, western and southeastern parts of the nation, the temperature forecast is actually nearer normal. But you'll notice on this there's very little above average, just down here around the far southwestern tip of the nation. We've got some above average temperatures, but really the bulk of the United States on the UK Met Office model is not being forecast to have any particularly warm weather, so that's quite interesting in itself, that the trend is definitely average to below average rather than above average. In terms of precipitation, slightly above average precipitation being forecast here for many central and eastern parts of the nation. It's nearer normal out to the west, but actually this is going for quite a wet winter, I think, here across many parts of the United States, certainly above average precipitation being forecast, and temperatures not particularly on the warm side either. The next one I want to look at is the Russian model. This is seasonal anomalies. This is seasonal probability anomalies. So this isn't generic temperature forecast. This is more probability, but it is going for a cold winter here in much of the east of the nation. The probability is very strong, but it's going to be below average here in the east and the northeast. Not such a strong signal for central and western areas. But again, down here in the very far southwest, we've got a signal for above average temperature anomalies this winter, but the rest of the nation near normal to cold. So again, we see a great absence here across the bulk of the United States from the Russian model for above average temperatures this winter. Really quite interesting developments have taken place here across these models. For precipitation, the anomaly is for a below average precipitation here in the western area, in the western states of the United States, but probability there is for below average precipitation and up to the northeast as well. Although along the eastern seaboard we've got probability of above average precipitation, and that's probably because there's a big trough of low pressure sitting there off the east of the United States in conjunction with this large blocking feature going going on in the Atlantic and stretching into Scandinavia. So this is very much a negative NAO sort of signal, I think, actually, from the Russian model, with a big trough of low pressure off the eastern seaboard, a ridge somewhere up to the northeast, although it's not that strong, and more ridging up in the northwestern part of the Atlantic. So that's the Russian model. Next model we're looking at is the Beijing Climate Center, and this is going for a large blocking feature through Greenland in towards much of Canada, and the jet stream running underneath that. A very classic negative NAO signal here from the Beijing Climate Center, with the jet stream running underneath, and the trough particularly centered through these eastern and southeastern parts of the United States. So this is definitely, I think, a colder than average sort of signal from the Beijing Climate Center, with the jet stream running underneath this ridge of blocking high pressure up to the north. So as you would expect, consequently you would expect above average temperature anomalies, a warm winter being forecast here for much of Canada and down into the Pacific Northwest. You would expect that because we've got that blocking feature going on, whereas southern, southeastern and eastern parts of the United States are forecast to have a colder than average winter. As I say, this is very much from the Beijing Climate Center, a negative sort of North Atlantic oscillation type pattern, with a trough here in the east and the southeast, blocking ridge up to the north, the jet stream running underneath that block, taking the cold air in. So this is definitely a cold winter signal for much of the east of the nation, from the Beijing Climate Center, warmer in the north and the west. And for precipitation, well, the signal isn't as strong, maybe driving average up here to the north, around the Canadian border, up towards central and eastern parts of Canada. Again, that's probably in association with that ridge. Whereas down this eastern side and through this southeastern part, again, we've got above average precipitation in conjunction where we've got the cold and average temperatures being forecast. So definitely for the east of the nation, the Beijing Climate Center is going for a colder than average winter. So a real pattern is emerging here amongst these models. If we start to think about putting them together, definitely we've got patterns emerging. Now for the Jamstec IOD model, a very strong signal here for colder than average winter for much of the east and central part of the nation, warmer out to the west, many of these western states having above average temperatures this winter if the model is right. But for central, east and southeast parts of the nation, the forecast is for a colder than average winter, and the Beijing Climate Center has been going for this on many of the monthly updates. You remember, you've been watching these monthly updates with me through the last few months of Beijing Climate Center. I should say the Jamstec IOD model has very much been predicting a colder than average winter here through much of the United States, and it's still going for it away from the west, particularly centered in the east and the southeast. For precipitation, it's going for a dry and average winter for many of these eastern parts of the nation, although it is wetter in the southeast and perhaps running up the eastern seaboard. But certainly for these eastern states and into the northeast, it's drier than average. Actually, much of the nation is forecast to be quite dry this winter. Very few states being forecast to have above average precipitation here from the IOD model. So that's quite interesting. Quite a dry winter is being forecast, but definitely cold in the east of the nation. And finally, having a look at your own CFS model, and well, it's going for quite a warm winter here in these central and western states away from the Pacific coast. It's going for quite a warm winter, but to the east it's nearer normal, and maybe a very slightly weak signal for a bit of a cold and average winter on the eastern seaboard, but not particularly strong. This anomaly is not particularly strong for much of the central and east part of the nation. For these western areas, as I say, away from the Pacific, it is a stronger signal to be warmer than average. And for precipitation, quite interesting here, above average precipitation being forecast in the southeast. The rest of the nation forecast to have quite average sort of precipitation, really. So again, no strong signal emerging from CFS version 2 model, and I've got to be honest about this. I personally think CFS has taken a step backwards with the version 2 model. I've been talking about this in my European seasonal model roundup as well. The signal is just not as strong with CFS version 2. I'm not sure what's happening with this model. CFS version 1 didn't have particularly strong signals, but it had a stronger signal than this model, CFS version 2, so I'm not sure what's going on with it. I think there does need to be some tweaking. But anyway, if you take that out, the general signal, the general trend, I think, amongst these models is for much of the east of the United States to have a colder than average winter. The signal is not as strong for central and western parts of the nation. In fact, the west of the nation may be slightly favoured to have above average temperatures. But certainly for the east of the nation, where the population centres are, New York, Washington, I do think that the signal there is definitely through all of these models. The signal there is definitely for a cold and average winter. So that's what I'm going to predict on this forecast. It is going to be a colder than average winter for the east of the United States this winter. Maybe nearer normal to slightly above average for the west and for the northwest. In terms of the precipitation, the signal is very, very mixed with that, but probably where we've got the cold weather in the east, it is favoured very slightly to be dry and average. Maybe a signal in southern and southeastern states for above average precipitation. Some of that could be snow at times. For western areas, probably where we've got the warmer than average temperatures, it'll also be quite dry there as well. But the signal for precipitation not particularly strong. That signal for colder than average in the east is quite strong, and I do think the east of the states this winter is going to be in for a colder than average winter. Well, next month I'll be doing the first spring seasonal model forecast, so do please come back for that. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.